Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a movie that was initially scrapped, but went on to become a surprisingly introspective classic film. It's not just your typical UFO film either. Writer and director Steven Spielberg's own search for answers of meaning and existence bled through to make this film deeply moving. We're here to reveal its hidden layers and how it came to be.
Spielberg got the idea of Close Encounters from a childhood memory of watching a meteor shower with his dad back in New Jersey. So in 1973, he began writing. Several changes occurred during this process. The original title was Watch the Skies, and it was about people who believed in UFOs. But writer Gloria Katz thought that it was one of the worst ideas she had ever heard. So the movie went on the shelf for a while, and Spielberg went on to make Jaws. So in 1974, the next script came out. It was called Kingdom Come. Spielberg called it one of the most embarrassing screenplays ever turned into a motion picture studio. So he decided to take a hand in writing it himself. He was inspired by the song When You Wish Upon a Star from Pinocchio, and the title was changed from Watch the Skies to Close Encounters of the Third Kind during pre-production. However, Spielberg did not throw away the title Watch the Skies. It was actually an Easter egg in the Spielberg-produced movie Gremlins. In the background of one scene, you can see a movie theater marquee with two films on it. One is called Watch the Skies, and the other is A Boy's Life, which was the working title of Spielberg's E.T. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was released in the summer of 1977, but Spielberg was not happy with the final product. He actually wanted 6 more months to shoot it and was hoping to get a release date in 1979. But the studio really wanted this movie out fast. So part of the bargaining with that was he can do a special edition. The special edition was released in 1980. Spielberg added 7 minutes of new footage. He deleted or shortened several scenes by 10 minutes, bringing the runtime to 132 minutes, which was 3 minutes shorter than the original version. Some of the new scenes included finding the SS Cotopaxi in the Gobi Desert and a shot of inside of the mothership. In 1998, yet another version of Close Encounters was released. This time it was the director's cut. It was a re-edited version of the original film with some elements of the special edition. The shot of the inside of the mothership was removed because Spielberg thought he should never have put it in there in the first place, and the inside should have remained a mystery. This is the longest version of the film. It runs at 137 minutes.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind is a story that follows Roy Neary, portrayed by Richard Dreyfuss. Normal guy living in Muncie, Indiana. It's actually 1970s Muncie, Indiana, so those of you there now, it's a little bit different back in the day. Anyway, on a random night, he happens to see a UFO, and this really affects him. He starts to become very, very obsessed to the point where he starts driving away his family. Throughout the movie, Roy actually crosses paths with Jillian, who's played by Ralphie's mom, Melinda Dillon, and her son has been abducted by these aliens. So the two of them kind of have a common goal, one being obsessed with the aliens, the other looking for the aliens to get their son back. And they're following the clues and getting little signs. They both are seeing this mountain that they just can't describe. They don't know what's going on. Of course, in the 1970s, seeing a mountain like that wouldn't be as obvious to some people as it would now because everything's online. They end up finding out that this is happening at the Devil's Tower. They head out there and actually get a witness that we find out throughout the movie that a lot of people know about this extraterrestrial sighting and the first contact that's about to happen. And so they make it there and they play a little Simon Says. At the end, they release a few people that they have abducted from what we find back in World War II, and then take on a new group of people, including Richard Dreyfuss, because when you're sending up experts and scientists, you also want to send a electrician from Muncie, Indiana, which was a little bit weird. But all in all, a fun movie. There were some intense parts, but nothing too scary, so definitely kids could watch it. And it was an interesting way to tell the story of First Contact, although I did have a couple small issues. I don't want this to take away from the enjoyment of the movie because it was a good movie. However, towards the end, a few things seem a little bit rushed, and it all comes down to Richard Dreyfuss's character. First off, he gets invited to go with them, and they're sitting there and like, which blood type? And he's like, I don't know. Seems a little bit weird that just, these NASA, I'm assuming NASA scientists are just like, yeah, send this guy too. It's cool. So that seemed a little bit rushed on my part. But 2, he is about to go up in the UFO. Now, the guys who got off the UFO before him have been missing for, at this point, 30 plus years. So he left his family back in Indiana, and he's out in Wyoming, and he's just like, okay, I'm going to go, and gets on this ship. He's got 3 kids at home. He's got a wife. I understand they're estranged. They've had some issues because of this, but you'd think he'd want to say bye to his children, because there's a chance when he comes back, they're all going to be in their 40s. So that part bothered me a little bit, because, I don't have kids, but, just saying bye to a brother, to a friend, if I'm leaving for 40 years. I moved down to Florida and cried my eyes out when I had to say bye to everyone up here for a little while. To go away for that long and that distance and not even think about calling your kids, calling your wife, parents. I don't know. Does he have parents still alive? It was just, that part of the movie was kind of rushed for me, and it took me away, because I can't see a father doing that without saying goodbye. I don't care how much you've been fighting with your wife. The last thing you want for her to find out is like, oh, I haven't seen Roy in about 6 weeks. What's he doing? Oh, he got in the spaceship and left forever. So other than that, the rest of the movie did flow really well. The special effects were done very well, considering it was done in 1977. Barely got any Star Wars out of that. He still was able to kind of hang in there with it. So it was pretty cool.
Okay, let's go a level deeper with our analysis. One of the most intriguing threads to follow in this film is Roy's transformation and how other people around him react to what's happening to him. While Roy feels his life finally has a purpose, his wife is totally disinterested in finding an explanation for their encounter with a UFO. She doesn't feel the need to look for answers. But several times when she asks Roy why he was so focused on finding answers, Roy says, "It's really important." He never really says why, though, and I kind of wondered if maybe he doesn't really know. He just feels something tugging at him. But the movie highlights what sometimes happens when one person in a relationship goes through some kind of change or transformation and the other person does not. On the other hand, Roy already seemed totally disengaged from his wife and children at the beginning of the film, unhappy and lost. So he was already disconnected from them. But the UFO becomes a catalyst for his transformation. I wondered though, does Ronnie not join him in his quest because she doesn't recognize what's happening to him? Maybe she thinks he's going crazy. She knows he's changing, but she doesn't know if it's for the good or if it's going to be for the worst. And his transformation will cost him friends, relationships, family, neighbors, and a job. And this kind of isolation is something that we experience in real life when we go through a period of significant change or a shift in our personal beliefs. Roy's search is actually spiritual in nature, though. A search for a higher power or intelligence that actually coincides with a period of searching in director and writer Steven Spielberg's own life. Steven Spielberg actually grew up Jewish, but stopped practicing the religion for a time. He was fascinated with UFOs, though, and that's part of the reason he was drawn to make this film. And he would eventually return to the Jewish faith, but this movie was made during a period where he was still searching and questioning. So Spielberg's own search for answers in existence may actually be part of what made him able to draw these performances that were so convincing out of the characters in the film. Hidden throughout the film are subtle hints that the aliens may actually represent the search for God or some kind of higher power. For instance, in ancient religion, including Judaism, mountains were thought to be a place where the gods live. And in the Old Testament, this is true too. This is where Moses met with God on Mount Sinai. So in the film, the people are drawn to, you guessed it, a mountain to meet the aliens. On the drive there, dead animals are everywhere, possibly an allusion to the idea that animals had to be sacrificed as a peace offering, a symbol of goodwill before approaching God, just like the sacrificial system in the Old Testament. Roy even brings a canary in a cage, and sure, it is true that canaries were used to detect poison gas, but there's another hint when the people approach the alien ship. In the Old Testament, it was viewed as dangerous to approach God without serious caution. When the scientists began trying to speak to the aliens using music as a universal language, at first the alien ship interacts positively, but then it plays the Jaws theme, hinting at potential danger at approaching the ship. If there were still any doubt that the film was hinting at some kind of spiritual quest, a priest reads scripture over the human explorers before they board the ship. The people who are thought long dead aboard the ship might actually be an allusion to the book of Revelation, when the dead will be raised in the future. And finally, the movie gives an interesting picture of what pursuing God is intended to do, but we unfortunately don't always see in real life from religion. You see it most clearly between Roy and Jillian, when their search actually brings them not only closer to the answers and to this higher power, but closer to each other. It's a picture of how things are meant to be, in a stark contrast to the division that we sometimes see in the world. If things had been different, maybe Ronnie could have joined Roy on his search. But the film is more thought-provoking this way as is, showing the true cost of change.
Little bonus content before we wrap things up. We found a little Easter egg in Close Encounters, and it's one of those Star Wars references. Could have probably put this one in one of our other videos, but this film was released in November of '77, 6 months after Star Wars. So this is probably the first movie to do a Star Wars reference. R2-D2 makes an appearance on the bottom of the mothership. He's actually turned upside down, and there's a quick shot of him as the ship is coming in. And if you know where to look, you can see R2 hanging upside down. So that might be the first ever Star Wars, non-Star Wars movie reference. It's one of his many cameos in the many movies that he's been in.
A similar alien abduction movie is Fire in the Sky, and it's supposedly based on a true story. So, how true is the story in the film? Find out in this video next.